Throughout history, people have made amazing accomplishments that define themselves. Now, it's our turn to tell those accomplishments, to tell his story, her story, their story, and even your story. With Mike Wexler.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a brand new episode, first episode actually of Your Story. My name is Mike Wexler. I have this new rebrand, and today I have a very, very special guest. I have the privilege of talking to this individual, sports broadcaster for the Los Angeles Dodgers alongside Oral Hershiser. But not only that, he is also a sports broadcaster with Fox Sports, and also with Beloit College. And just his work as a sports broadcaster is truly amazing. Getting the opportunity to speak with this individual is just an honor for me. And as an aspiring sportscaster, watching his work ever since 2016 when he joined the Los Angeles Dodgers, it's just mind-blowing to get the conversation with this individual. So ladies and gentlemen, enough of the preliminaries. The one, the only, Joe Davis.
What's going on, Mike? Thank you for having me, man.
So Joe, I know the first question I do want to get started with is just how did it feel during this pandemic, for you? Because a lot went on, from basketball getting canceled. We also saw, the cancellation of MLB, and they haven't even started spring training yet. It felt like that there was a lot going on in a short amount of time.
Yeah, it all happened so fast. Like you said, it was one thing led to the next, and then before you knew it, all sports were shut down. And with baseball, it kind of became a question of, I think at first it was like, well, is opening day going to happen? And then it was like, okay, maybe not. So what, mid-April? No, wow, is it going to get pushed back a month? And then you started wondering, is the season going to happen? And it was more because of the players and the owners trying to figure out an agreement to play the season than it was where the pandemic was at. So there were some moments there where we were wondering if there was going to be a season at all for different reasons.
I know it's crazy because you're telling that story through the broadcast booth. And not only that, but you were telling a story in a different setting. I mean, obviously there's no fans in the field. There's no ovation. There's no tailgating parties outside of Dodger Stadium. So it had to be a weird feeling just calling games just off of a monitor.
Yeah, it was eerie doing those games with no fans in the stands. It was weird so we did road games off monitors, just off our little TV screens from the Dodger Stadium booth. But it was even weirder doing the games that were actually at Dodger Stadium just because there's a baseball game going on in the field with zero people in the stands, the crowd noise pumped in. It was something out of a weird dream.
So one thing I'm very curious about too is the fact that we're in this new setting of baseball. I mean, no one expected no fans in the crowd. It's truly something special when you do hear that crowd, but then now we're transitioning to something different. And to me, that's very like, oh, no fans in the crowd. That's going to be interesting. So how did it feel to adjust to that kind of setting?
I mean, I think that when you get into it, yeah, it was great just to have baseball of any form, especially when you talk about wondering if the season was ever going to happen. So sure, there were more moments than not where we were more concerned about the at-bat and the pitcher and the hitter and their stories and everything than we were about everything that was weird about 2020. But there was kind of an underlying sense of it just being different the whole way.
So one thing I do want to mention too is the passion you have for sports broadcasting. As a consumer, I could feel it through your voice every time you do call a game at Dodger Stadium or even a away game for LA Sportsnet. Can you talk to us about where that passion really comes from?
I think a couple places. I think that I, like all of us, right, just grew up loving sports. And that boy that loved sports is still in me and still kind of drives my love for what I do. And then you mentioned it a minute ago, but I've always kind of been a nerd of broadcasting and have really studied it and studied play-by-play announcers and what I like and what I don't, and trying to come up with my own style. And so, you put those two things combined, there's nowhere else in the world I'd rather be than sitting right in that chair calling those games. And hopefully that does come across.
Having a lineage like Vin Scully had for over 60 years, and then going into the broadcast booth, I feel like that you are truly letting his legacy grow and to showcase that legacy within your own voice.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And I think that's one of the many things that set Vin apart was his storytelling ability. And that's something that when I listen back and critique myself, I always find my ears perking up when I hear myself telling a story. And so I get it. People want to hear about these guys as people more than they want to hear about them as numbers and as players necessarily. Or at least they want to hear about the person before they want to hear about the player. And that's something that Vin did better than anybody else. And I've done my best to incorporate that into my own calls.
Also, there was an Instagram post that was on your feed where you took two fans and you showed them the ropes. You showed them what you do on a daily basis. Can you talk to us about like what that experience was like?
First of all, apologies for my 2-year-old here joining the conversation in 2021. But yeah, I mean, anytime I can bring fans into it and let them see what we do, I try to do that. And whether that's through social media or if there's ever any situations where it can be done in person, hopefully better days ahead where we can do stuff like that again. But always happy to pull back the curtain, because without the fans and without the people caring the way Dodger fans do, what we do really has no point to it.
What about the knowledge that you do have, whether that's through Vin Scully, whether that's through any of the sports broadcasters of the past? I mean, I feel like that when you're brought upon knowledge and experience from all these Hall of Fame broadcasters, like it's truly something special to be showcasing that throughout the microphone and to others.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's part of what makes the Dodgers, this position for me so great, and the responsibility so great. It's because of the other broadcasters that have been part of this organization. 67 years of Vin, which followed Red Barber. I mean, they're the two greatest ever to do it. And that's I don't look at it as pressure because of that. I look at it as an amazing responsibility given the lineage.
So one thing I'm very curious about too is when Vin Scully retired in 2016, you were brought up upon with Oral Hershiser for LA Sportsnet. What was that opportunity, kind of making that transition into being the two main voices of the Los Angeles Dodgers?
It was smooth, I think, because number one, the team's been good, so I've been given good news. If the team had lost 100 games a year since I got there, they might have run me out of town by now. So it was smooth because the team was good, and it was smooth because of Oral and the relationship we have. And what you hear on the air each night is really just an extension of our genuine friendship. And I don't think you can fake something like that, especially in baseball where it's every single night for the entire summer.
Just having that conversation, whether that's an at-bat, whether that's someone starting on the mound, closing on the mound, it's truly something special hearing those conversations with yourself and Oral and make them in an everyday thing.
Well, thanks for saying that. And announcers are often viewed as a booth, right? As a pair. I'm not necessarily viewed as Joe, and he's not necessarily viewed as Oral. We're viewed as Joe and Oral. And our chemistry and what we do together is a big part of, I think, what people like when they watch Dodger baseball. But we're very lucky to have it, because you can't just decide to have chemistry. You can't just fake that. So the fact that we have chemistry as people, we're very lucky that we have that as kind of the foundation of everything we do on the air.
I mean, a lot of the times people tune into baseball games and they really don't hear the statistics that's going on. But you and Oral really make it as if it's an everyday conversation.
Yeah, we try to not give stats just to give stats. We try to give stats to make a point, to tell a story. And anytime we give a number, we're going to do our best to give context around it. Even if there's not necessarily a story in the traditional sense around it, we're going to make it so it's not a math lesson. We're going to give you a number. We're going to tell you why we're telling you that number, why that number matters.
Yeah, and speaking about that, we did find a little bit of a special guest appearance from your son. Can you talk to us about the impact that your family has on your career?
Oh, they're everything. You know, I don't have many hobbies. I've pretty much got my family and my job and cooking some food, eating some food, enjoy doing that. But They mean everything to me. I say it all the time. I wouldn't be in the position I'm in if not for my wife, who I met when I was in college and has been along for every step of the journey that I've been on. And my kids are, until you have kids, I guess it's hard to understand and it's hard to explain, but they're everything and really help put everything career-wise into perspective. I think where had you asked me 5 years ago, I was probably in a much different place in terms of, speaking of, he's back. 5 years ago, I would have said, I've got to be number one at a network or my career is a failure if I don't get that eventually. And I think part of it is having kids and having a family, and don't do that, Blake. But over time, my perspectives change where, heck, if I'm doing the Dodgers for 50 years and I have a healthy family, like that's success. I don't need to be the number one guy at a network. I would love to be, but I don't need for that to happen for it to be a successful career in life for me.
So one thing I do want to mention too is your great social media game. I mean, your social media game is so great on Instagram, where you do kind of show the outside world what your outside life outside of Dodger Stadium is like, whether that's through those juicy steaks. Let me tell you, it is so great to see whenever you do the cooking segments.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And I try not to do too much of it, but a good balance where people can get to know me and my family a little bit more. And he's pretty cute. Daughter's pretty cute. So figure we share that every now and then. You like to get video of you hitting too, don't you? Yeah, you're a big hitter, right? Who's your favorite player? Who's your favorite player? Is it Mookie? Yeah, he's a big Mookie guy.
Yeah. Well, after that 12-year contract, I mean, hopefully he's his favorite player.
Be his teammate by the time Mookie's contract ends. 12 years from now, my goodness. Can you go get mommy?
Let's talk about your transition. You transitioned from the Fox Sports perspective, calling baseball games, calling football games, to going into the Dodger booth alongside with Oral Hershiser. I mean, can you talk to us about that transition from going into Fox Sports all the way to going to the Vin Scully booth, the iconic Vin Scully booth, and really telling the story that's happening inside the ballpark?
Oh, no, I never could have imagined it, being from the Midwest. And that's not, and really I didn't set out saying I wanted to be the voice of a team even. It was one of those things where, especially once I got going with my national career, for me to take a job with a team, it had to be the perfect situation, and one that I couldn't turn down. And that's exactly what the Dodger job was, given who I was following. That was a big part of why I wanted it, was because of Vin. A lot of people looked at it and said, you don't want that job because you don't want to be the guy to follow Vin. But I tried to channel it a little bit differently. I didn't think that I could look at it 5 years from now, 20 years from now, and be okay with saying I could have had that job, but I didn't take it out of fear of it not working.
So you got a voicemail from Vin Scully. I mean, obviously, I'm a huge fan of Vin Scully, as you are yourself. And, I did watch a documentary where you were involved in. And it was such a great documentary. Make sure you guys go check that out if you haven't seen that documentary already with Joe Davis. So Joe, if I may ask, getting that voicemail from someone as huge and such an icon in the sports broadcasting business as Vin Scully, how did that feel?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, first of all, it was shocked that I had ignored the call and sent it to voicemail. Oh my gosh, what have I done? But yeah, and anytime I've gotten to talk with Vin and pick his brain for advice, I always pinch myself. And anytime I think about being the guy that followed Vin, still to this day, I pinch myself. So yeah, there's plenty of, as a nerd of the industry, plenty of fanboying that goes on all the time.
Now, my last question is coming from an aspiring broadcaster myself. I just have to ask, what is your advice to aspiring broadcasters who want to get into the field of sports broadcasting, whether that's baseball, basketball, football, women's sports, men's sports, or anything of that nature?
Yeah, I think that, first of all, you're doing it, in that you are being creative and finding opportunities and creating opportunities for yourself. The more you can do, the better. And I always try to look at it as being creatively aggressive when I was in college and I was first starting out. Find opportunities, but make opportunities too. And every rep is going to count. Every time you you do a show, every time you do a broadcast, every time you call a game, you're going to get a little bit better. As long as you have that intent, as long as you're trying to use every opportunity as a chance to get better. And man, you're going to make huge strides and huge growth if you do have that intent to make every on-air rep a chance to get better.
Well, thank you, Joe, so much for getting a conversation with me. I mean, again, it's crazy to think that one of my idols is getting a chance to sit down and talk to me. Thank you once again.
Of course, Mike. Great to meet you.
And for those who don't know, make sure you guys follow Joe Davis on all social medias. And make sure, if you don't know who this man is, make sure you tune into Sportsnet LA, where you can find him as well as Oral Hershiser giving the rundown and giving the storytelling to the Los Angeles Dodgers each and every home game and away game. So thank you so much, Joe, and I will see you guys in the next episode of Your Story.
Sounds great. Best of luck, Mike.
Thank you.